All right, everybody. My name's Ian Gibbs. Tonight we're going to talk about Flora MacDonald, the Loyal Rebel. So Flora was born in 1722 on South Weast. It's an island in the Hebrides off the western coast of Scotland. Her father, Ranald MacDonald, was a taxman and a leaseholder of Milton. Um, he died when she was very young. Um, and upon his death, her mother married Hugh MacDonald, who was a taxman on the island of Skye. So in 1745, an uprising seeking to put King James back on the throne in Scotland and England kicked off. The rebellion was led by his son, Charles Edward Stuart, who's also known as Bonnie Prince Charlie. There had previously been a Jacobite uprising, and it had lost, and the MacDonalds were very divided in their support. Not that they didn't have Jacobite support, uh, not that they didn't lean more towards the Jacobite cause, but some were afraid to get involved, so they kind of stayed neutral. Um, Bonnie Prince Charlie was very close to winning early on. He made it almost all the way to London before he turned around because of an actual misinformation that was planted by a spy. Um, when he retreated, his army started to fall apart, and they were caught at the Battle of Culloden and defeated, soundly defeated. Um, After that happened, Charles was trying to find a way to flee back to France, and he was stuck. And Flora was able to get a pass to take Charles to in disguise to Skye, where he caught a boat and sailed back to France, escaping. Um, so she was detained for this. It didn't take long till everybody knew who was involved. And she was placed under house arrest outside the Tower of London. That's very interesting to me. Most of the people who were captured as part of the plot were placed in the tower, but Flora was lived outside of the tower, but was kind of on house arrest. And she stayed there until 1747 with the Act of Indemnity, which is like an amnesty. In 1750, she married Alan MacDonald. Um, I don't know if he served in the Jacobite War or not, but he did serve in the 7 Years' War. And through this time, he eventually immigrated to North Carolina. So, Western North Carolina, the Regulator War went on for a while. But in 1775, when the American Revolution kicked off, the McDonald's that lived in Anson County, North Carolina, were very wary of participating in yet again another revolt. A lot of them feared they wouldn't survive a third revolt. So, um, being wary, he decided that he would raise a battalion to fight for the king. So, he founded the Anson Battalion. It's the Anson County Battalion, and they had about 1,000 men. And initially, their plan was to link up with 2,000 British reinforcements. Now, Patriot militia under Richard Caswell figured out that this was going on, and they moved their troops very close to Cross Creek, where the Anson Battalion was at. When the Anson Battalion tried to leave, they were ambushed at a place called Moores Creek Bridge by the Patriot militia and yet again soundly defeated. So, throughout the battle, Flora didn't fight, but she worked to motivate the troops. Um, Her son and her husband were both captured. Um, the state of North Carolina imprisoned them both in Halifax, North Carolina. But there were still a tremendous amount of Scots, and she was she was very famous, and her husband was pretty well known at the time, and they were really worried about attempts at rescuing these prisoners in Halifax. So they made a deal with the state of Pennsylvania, and they transferred them to a prison in Philadelphia. Now, while he was in prison, while Alan was in prison, he directed Flora to return to Scotland. Now, she had to get passport and permission, and she left finally in 1779 on a British warship and didn't end up arriving until 1780. Um, she's famously been made a folk hero in Scotland for her participation in aid and Bonnie Prince Charlie. Um, they've songs about her, the Sky a Boat song. There's representations of her in poems and books and movies. And for a lot of years, she was used kind of as a folk hero or a mythologized symbol for the Jacobite uprising, and very little has been talked about her participation in the loyalist plight in North Carolina. Um, there have recently been, well, not recently, there have been over the years others that have remarked that she was kind of wishy-washy. She would work for the House of Hanover and for the House of Stuart, and it was all for her political gain. Now, I don't know if that's a fair assessment, but there have been remarks made about it. It's really interesting to me though. She's famous for being a traitor. Now, in England and Scotland, she's viewed more sympathetically because she told the Prince of Wales that what she did for Bonnie Prince Charlie was an act of kindness, and she would have done the same for him had he been in that situation. So she began to be looked at very sympathetically. In North Carolina, she's seen as a traitor to her state, and they don't really look at her as sympathetic, I think, as Britain. In fact, I would argue that most people in Western North Carolina probably have no clue who she is today, but um, she built up all her reputation on being a traitor. So now for the project tonight, I, I think I think Flora is kind of unique because she was involved in two different uprisings. I don't know that you could have had a similar situation with somebody else in North Carolina to take her place. I think the myth revolves around these two significant events that she was involved in. Mainly the helping Bonnie Prince Charlie flee, but then also her participation in the Loyalist defeat in North Carolina. Um, I don't know that the myth does her justice. I don't know that it's as accurate. You read a lot of things um, from the time about her that are not are not true. And it's because of the propaganda of the era. But anyways, I really enjoyed tonight's discussion. I can't wait to see y'all's. I hope you enjoyed my video. Have a good night.